Hey everyone! Today, let's dive into the fascinating world of the Sarmatians, an ancient group of nomadic horse-riding warriors who roamed the vast Pontic steppe from around the 3rd century BC to the 4th century AD. The Sarmatians were first mentioned in ancient texts, including the Avesta, as Cyrema. These people originated in the central Eurasian steppe and were closely related to the Scythians. They began moving westward in the 4th and 3rd centuries BC, and by 200 BC, they had taken over the Scythian territories. At their peak, around 100 BC, the Sarmatians' land stretched from the Vistula River to the Danube and eastward to the Volga, reaching the Black and Caspian Seas and the Caucasus Mountains. In the 1st century AD, the Sarmatians started to clash with the Roman Empire, often teaming up with Germanic tribes. By the 3rd century AD, their control over the Pontic steppe was challenged by the Germanic Goths. When the Huns invaded in the 4th century, many Sarmatians joined forces with the Goths and other tribes, including the Vandals, as they moved into the Western Roman Empire. Their homeland in what is now Russia, between the Ural Mountains and the Don River, is sometimes called the Sarmatian motherland. Some Sarmatians in the Bosporan kingdom blended into Greek civilization, while others mixed with the Proto-Circassian Meotian people, the Alans and the Goths. Many also integrated with early Slavic groups. The Alans, a related group, survived in the North Caucasus into the early Middle Ages, eventually becoming the modern Ascetic people. Interestingly, Polish nobility claims to descend from the Sarmatians. Genetic studies suggest that the Sarmatians were similar to the Yamnaya people from the Bronze Age. The name, Sarmatians, comes from the Old Iranic term Sarmata, which meant armed with throwing darts and arrows, linking them to the Scythians, known as archers. This name evolved over time, with the Greek calling them Sarmatai or Sarmatai. The Sarmatians emerged as a distinct group in the 4th to 3rd centuries BC, when Central Asian nomads migrated into the Sarmatian territory near the southern Ural Mountains. These new arrivals conquered the Sarmatians, leading to a mix of Eastern Asiatic features in the early Sarmatians, similar to the Sakas. The term Sarmatians eventually referred to this new group, which included tribes like the Aorsi, Roxolani, Alans, and Eosages. Though the names sound alike, Sarmatian culture was distinct from Sarmatian culture, as it was shaped by these new migrants. One notable archaeological site from this transition period is the Filipovka kurgans, dating back to the 5th–4th century BCE. And now let's explore the Sarmatians' influence in the Pontic steppe and Europe. During the 4th and 3rd centuries BC, the Sarmatians' power center was primarily north of the Caucasus, with significant hubs around the Lower Don, Kalmykia, the Kuban area, and the Central Caucasus. By the end of the 4th century BC, the once dominant Scythians in the Black Sea steppe faced military defeats by Macedonian kings Philip II and Lysimachus in 339 and 313 BC, respectively. These setbacks continued with their participation in the Bosporan Civil War in 309 BC, and increased pressure from the Thracian Geti and Celtic Bastarnae. Meanwhile, in Central Asia, the new Seleucid Empire started attacking the Saka and Daha nomads following the Macedonian conquest of the Achaemenid Empire. This led to increased pressure on the Sarmatians from the east. Taking advantage of the declining Scythian power, the Sarmatians began crossing the Don River and moved into Scythia, migrating south into the North Caucasus. The first major wave of Sarmatian migration westward occurred in the 2nd century BC, involving the Royal Sarmatians, or Seoi, who moved into the Pontic steppe, and the Eosages, who initially settled between the Don and Dnieper rivers. Following them were the Roxolani, possibly a mixed Scytho-Sarmatian tribe, who occupied the Black Sea steppes up to the Dnipro and raided the Crimean region. By the end of the 2nd century BC, the Roxolani were involved in conflicts with the generals of Pontic King Mithridates VI Eupator and the Bosporan Chersonesus, while the Eosages allied with him. The fact that tribes once called Scythians were now referred to as Sarmatians by Greek and Roman authors suggests that the Sarmatians absorbed the Scythians rather than displacing them from the Pontic steppe. Consequently, the Sarmatians became the dominant political power in the northern Pontic steppe by the 2nd century BC, as evidenced by the emergence of Sarmatian graves in the region. The remaining Scythian population was largely confined to Crimea and the Dobruja region, with the Crimean Scythians becoming vassals of the Sarmatian queen Amaj at one point. The Sarmatians exerted their influence over the Greek cities along the Pontic shores, with cities like Pontic Albia paying tribute to the royal Sarmatians and their king Ctesiphon, as noted in the Protogenes inscription. Another Sarmatian king, Gadalos, was named in a peace treaty with Pharnaces I of Pontus. Two other Sarmatian tribes, the Cyrrhices and the Eorsi, moved west across the Volga into the foothills of the Caucasus between the 2nd and 1st centuries BC. Their growing power forced other Sarmatian tribes to migrate further west. The Eorsi and Cyrrhices eventually diminished the power of the royal Sarmatians and the Eziges, with the Eorsi extending their rule from the Caucasus to the Aral Sea region. A new Sarmatian group, the Elans, emerged in Central Asia, formed by merging older tribal groups with the Masashti. Pushed west by the Kangju people, the Elans expanded their territory from Fergana to the Aral Sea region, and the Sarmatians maintained their dominance in the Pontic steppe during the 1st century BC. They allied with the Scythians against Diophantus, a general of Mithridates via Eupator, but later supported Mithridates in his battles against the Romans, fighting across Europe and Asia. This period highlights the Sarmatians' deep involvement in the affairs of the Pontic and Danubian regions. In the early part of the century, the Elans migrated to the area northeast of Lake Meotis. The Eziges moved westward to the Danube, while the Roxolani settled between the Dnipro and the Danube, pushing further west from there. These tribes launched attacks on the regions around Tomis and Mysia. The Eziges and Roxolani also targeted the Roman province of Thracia, prompting its governor, Tiberius Plautius Silvanus Aelianus, to defend the Danube border. By the middle of the century, various Sarmatian groups, including the Eziges, had reached the Pannonian Basin, passing through modern-day Moldavia and Wallachia before settling in the Tisa Valley. Although their movements halted temporarily during the rise of the Dacian kingdom under Burebista, they resumed after his assassination and the collapse of his kingdom around 16 BC. Lucius Tarius Rufus repelled a Sarmatian attack on Thracia and Macedonia, while further attacks in 10 BC and 2 BC were defeated by Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus. During this time, other Sarmatian tribes, possibly the Eorsi, sent ambassadors to the Roman Emperor Augustus, who sought to establish diplomatic relations with them. In the 1st century AD, the Cyrrhices and Eorsi, who were hostile to each other, participated in the Roman Bosporan War on opposing sides. The Cyrrhices, led by King Zorcenes, allied with Mithridates III against his half-brother Codus I, who was allied with Rome and the Eorsi. Mithridates' defeat also led to the downfall of the Cyrrhices, who lost control of most of their lands. Between 50 and 60 AD, the Elans appeared in the foothills of the Caucasus, from where they launched attacks on the Caucasus, Transcaucasus, and the Parthian Empire. They expanded westward across the Volga, absorbing parts of the Eorsi and displacing the rest. This pressure from the Elans forced the Eziges and Roxolani to continue attacking the Roman Empire from across the Danube. Two Sarmatian rulers, Pharzoios and Anismios, minted coins in Pontic Albia during this period. The Roxolani continued their westward migration following conflicts in the Bosporan Chersonesus. By 69 AD, they were close enough to the lower Danube to launch winter attacks across the frozen river. Eventually, both the Roxolani and the Elans settled along the Black Sea coast, later moving further west into areas corresponding to modern-day Moldavia and western Ukraine. The Urai, a Sarmatian tribe with close contacts with the Romans, settled south of the Danube in Thrace. Another tribe, the Koralloi, lived in the same area alongside the Scythian Sindhi. Throughout the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, the Isages frequently troubled Roman authorities in Pannonia, participated in the destruction of the Quadian kingdom of Vannius, and migrated east across the Transylvanian plateau and the Carpathian mountains for seasonal movements or trade. By the 2nd century AD, the Alans had conquered the steppes of the North Caucasus and the North Black Sea area, forming a powerful confederation of tribes under their rule. Under Alan hegemony, a trade route connected the Pontic steppe, the southern Urals, and what is now western Turkestan. One group of Alans, known as the Anti, migrated north into present-day Poland, and the decline of the Sarmatians began in the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. Their dominance in the steppes was challenged as the Huns began conquering Sarmatian territories in the Caspian steppe and the Ural region. The final blow to Sarmatian supremacy came around 200 AD when the Germanic Goths, migrating from the Baltic Sea region, conquered the Pontic steppe. In 375 AD, the Huns conquered most of the Alans living east of the Don River, massacring many and absorbing the survivors into their own tribes. The Alans west of the Don, however, remained free from Hunnish domination. As part of the Hunnic state, the Alans participated in the defeat and conquest of the Ostrogothic kingdom on the Pontic steppe. Some Alans fled into the Caucasus Mountains, contributing to the ethnogenesis of groups like the Ossetians and Kabardians, while others survived in Crimea. Many Alans migrated into Central and Western Europe, with some eventually reaching Britannia and Hispania. A notable group joined the Germanic Vandals, crossing the Strait of Gibraltar and establishing the Vandal kingdom in North Africa. In the Bosporan kingdom, Sarmatians assimilated into Greek civilization. Others merged with the Proto-Circassian Mio people, possibly influencing the Circassian language. Some Sarmatians were absorbed by the Alans and Goths. During the early Middle Ages, the Proto-Slavic population of Eastern Europe also assimilated and absorbed Sarmatians amid the political upheavals of the time. Despite these changes, the Alans, a group related to the Sarmatians, survived in the North Caucasus into the early Middle Ages, eventually giving rise to the modern Ascetic ethnic group.